Educate your own kids? Why would you do that? The school does that, right? In this video, I'm going to outline my top 5 reasons as to why I believe it's important that we as parents educate our kids or supplement their education at home and build on what they learn at school. Hi, my name's Sean. I'm just a regular dad of 2 children, soon to be 3. Over the last 5 years, through educating my own kids, I've realised that their school education cannot fully nurture their potential on its own, and that we must do something and build on their education here at home. Even though my wife and I are not professional teachers, we believe that we can positively impact and build on our children's education. This, although challenging, can be achieved with the right attitude and approach. So without further ado, why do we spend so much time in our already very busy lives to educate our kids at home? So the first reason is limitations. All schools have limitations. If you're like us, your children's class probably has 20, maybe 30 students in it. And of course we all know that the teachers can't provide individual support to every single student at all times. They have an entire class to look after. All of these kids will be at different stages in their development. Of course you have the bell curve. And of course most kids will be somewhere in the middle, but you will have outliers at either end. You will have kids that are maybe struggling to catch up, struggling to keep pace with the rest of the class, and on the other side you have kids who are a little bit ahead. They don't find the work challenging enough. Maybe they need a little bit extra work or a little bit extra support. Now the teachers can't always provide that support due to time constraints. They only have so much time in the day, they're already very busy, it can be very challenging. I remember when I was in school in Scotland, a lot of the time was spent disciplining the children. That took up a lot of the teacher's time. There was times in my own education I remember sitting there in the classroom thinking, we haven't done anything in this lesson. We haven't learnt anything in this lesson because the whole time the teacher has been dealing with some other kids maybe that have been misbehaving. So of course all of that is wasted time. So at home you can obviously spend the time that your child needs, and you can take as much time as you want with your own child. You can be as patient as you need to be with your own child. You can focus on the areas in which they are struggling at school, and of course you will need to get a feeling for what it is they're struggling with. But once you understand what that is, whether that's feedback from the teacher or the child, you can work on that at home. And at the other end of the spectrum, if they are not stimulated enough, or they don't have enough to do, or they're not challenged enough, then of course you can give them additional work. And that takes of course a little bit of research into what you can provide them, what you should provide them, and a little bit of trial and error as well. But at least you can do that at home. You don't have that same limitation. Without any of the in-classroom issues or problems, you of course have to follow the school's curricula. Following the school's curriculum is important. All schools have their own methods of teaching, their own material that they use, and you're not going to be able to change that. The school will follow their own program. Our daughter goes to school where they have a governing body, and of course they set the curriculum. Of course they have the ability to go out with that and to explore other areas, but it's all within reason. At home you can of course teach your kids things that they may never learn at school, or you can even delve deeper into topics that they enjoyed. So of course you're not bound by the limits of the school. You're free to do what you wish and to teach what you wish. However, sometimes what's also equally important is reinforcement. So the second point being that your child learns things at school, and our daughter has learned a lot at her school, and a lot of what she has learned has been very useful and very helpful and very enjoyable for her. And when she comes home, she is obviously very excited about it, and you can help to reinforce what it is that she's learning. Now, where we live in Denmark at the moment, they don't get very much homework, especially at her age. You're around 6, 7, 8 years old. They don't get too much homework. They'll get some reading homework, maybe a little bit of mathematics, that's all. But of course they will do project work. It's very much project based, the school that she goes to, and a lot of that she will have an interest in, and she will want to delve and dig deeper into that topic when she is at home. For example, my daughter had a great project that she really enjoyed, all about art. Now I personally know nothing about art. I'm not in any sense a cultured person, but she came home very into this project, and at the end of the project she was expected to, and she was only 7 at this time, expected to do a presentation to the rest of her class. And She came home talking to me about different kinds of art, pop art, expressionism, pointillism, particular artists that she liked, like Andy Warhol, for example. And what we decided to do at home, what we decided was to set on 4 styles of art, and at the end of her project she would present these 4 styles to her class. Each week we would sit down and write out some main points about one style of art, expressionism for example. She would then try to do her own expressionist piece of art. So she would have these main points about art and she would have her own attempt at it, and to be honest, some of them were actually very, very good. I was very impressed with her. And at the end of the 4 weeks we had this little collage that we could put together and turn it into a presentation. So of course, because she enjoyed this so much, we were able to reinforce it at home. And because we spent the time every evening, whether it's half an hour or an hour in the evening, looking at all these aspects of art, digging out some old books I have, or even just using Wikipedia, YouTube, you can get really good 5-minute videos all about whatever topic it is that you're interested in or your child is interested in, and they'll be very grateful for it. So reinforcing what it is that they have been learning at school is also very important, and arguably a lot easier than going out and finding additional material to teach something that the school is not teaching. The third reason, and I think this is an obvious one, is the environment. School, of course, is incredibly important. It's important for many things, not just the academic side of it, but of course the social side of it. They learn a lot of social skills at school. They're interacting with different people all the time, and that's of course incredibly important. But in terms of learning academically, I find it's very important to ensure that the environment is suitable. So for example, it allows you to create a space that's free from distractions and fosters better concentration, like a quiet environment in their own room or in a study if you have one, or a different part of the house. Especially like us, where my eldest daughter has a younger brother, and he wants to play all the time, and he wants to do what his sister's doing, and he wants to take her things and her pens and her pencils and her notepad and the book that she's learning from. And of course at school it's the same, right? You have kids all around, they are all chatting and talking and discussing what they're going to do at the weekend or having a laugh or whatever it is. At home you're free from all of that, and you can set up a little space where they can sit and they can do their homework, or they can sit and do their maths. For example, our daughter every day she will do 10 to 15 minutes of maths, and that's just sums, so maybe she'll do 30-40 sums, mental arithmetic, and this only takes her the 10 to 15 minutes. It's not a huge amount of time out of her evening, but whilst she's doing that, she can be sitting in a distraction-free zone where she can concentrate 100%, and then she will actually be able to get it done a lot quicker. In your own environment, you can adjust the learning styles that particularly suit your own child. For example, they may learn better visually, they may learn better by reading, they may learn better by hands-on, they may also learn better by listening. Our daughter has learned an incredible amount from audiobooks, whereas our son, I feel, learns a lot more when he is hands-on building something. And in our own home we try to incorporate that a little bit, especially when I'm teaching history, for example, at the weekend. We will have all aspects of learning styles. I will try to incorporate a small video, we will also have some reading, we will also make something that has a relationship to what it is that we're learning. For example, recently we were learning about the Black Death or the bubonic plague, and she had some questions once we had read the passages. We watched some videos on YouTube. TEDx has a lot of good things, and there's a lot of fantastic places you can find short 4 to 5 minute clips to summarize what it is that you're learning. And at the end we made the masks with the pointy noses that the plague doctors used to wear. So of course this cements it in their head, and they never forget making that. They will talk about it weeks and weeks later. But you can do that within your own environment. That might not be possible at school, but you can certainly do it at home. The fourth reason is values. I believe that education is not just about maths and history and English, but it's also about values and also about belief systems, because ultimately they're questions we all ask, and they're awfully important questions. For example, the class that my daughter is a part of is incredibly diverse, very international. They have children from all over the world: America, France, the Ukraine, Great Britain. There's children from all parts of the world, and they all have different values and they all have different belief systems. Children in the class who are Muslim, we have children in the class that come from a Christian background, all different kinds of kids. Now at school it's probably not talked about a lot, and these subjects, although they shouldn't be, can become quite sensitive and can become sensitive quite quickly. Of course, at home you are free to discuss all of these different belief systems and all of the ethical dilemmas that they might bring up. My daughter is only young, but for example, she has come home because she has both Russian and Ukrainian speaking children in her class. They are all young, but they still know there's something going on in the world. They know there is a war. Of course, they don't know the details and they don't know all the background about it. However, they will have opinions that have obviously been formulated through one way or another. When I am discussing this with my daughter, we try to do it in an empathetic, respectful and kind manner in which you can encourage your child to see that there are different perspectives, there are different ways of thinking about different topics. I think it's important that you give them a foundation and a rock that they can build on. However, that you also bring them up to know and to understand that there are many people in the world that think differently than they do, that we can bring them up thinking rationally about it. The fifth reason, and for me the most important reason, is critical thinking. When I educate our kids, I want them to focus on independent thought. I want to encourage questions, analysis, and exploration of various viewpoints. Now, 1,000 questions is of course annoying because we as parents don't always have all the answers when you get, what does that mean? Why does it mean that? And they keep saying why over and over and over again. And ultimately, or eventually, you don't have an answer to that question. It's still very healthy that they're asking questions, and that they also challenge you as a parent when you tell them something, that they are free and they feel comfortable to say, well, Dad or Mum, why is that? I always remember reading C.S. Lewis's book, Surprised by Joy, and one of the passages stands out to me, and I've remembered since the day I read it, was when he was taking a train to go and meet his new tutor. And when Lewis got off the train to meet him for the first time, he was immediately faced with this rigorous intellectual encounter. Lewis at the time, once they had made their introductions, Lewis had made a remark about the countryside and that it was beautiful. And Kilpatrick, probably to C.S. Lewis's horror, immediately asked him to define what he meant by beauty. Kilpatrick was obviously a man who valued precise language, rigorous, critical and logical thinking, and he was obviously expected to justify every single statement that he made, which is of course not always convenient nor practical. But although my wife and I are of course not trained philosophers, it's still, in my opinion, very important that we teach our children how to think critically, how to think logically, and how to test ideas. And to test their own ideas, because we all believe things but we never question them. And I believe this critical thinking nurtures a child that is able to debate and to think without getting too emotionally involved. As I've grown older, I've started to feel that I was often taught what to think and not really taught how to think, how to really question your own beliefs. Of course, I am not trained in philosophy, I am not trained in the Socratic method, the Socratic way, but you can still start from the basics and just teach your kids to ask questions. There are so many reasons that you should educate your children at home, or at least supplement their education, or even just reinforce what they're learning in school. Whether it's avoiding the limitations at school, reinforcing what they've learned at school, improving on the environment in which they learn, instilling your own values and beliefs, or just encouraging critical thinking, they're all incredibly important, and they're all something that you can do. Even if it's at the basic level. You don't need to be a teacher. You don't need to even understand a lot of this stuff. You just need to start somewhere and improve bit by bit. And as time goes by, you will get better. As time goes by, you will learn more and it will become easier. But you're probably thinking, we don't have the time to do all of this. We're busy parents. We work all day, we come home, we need to cook and clean and get the kids ready for bed and give them dinner and all of this stuff. We don't have time to sit down and teach them for 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day. But if you would like to know a little bit about how we manage our time and slot in all this extra learning, you can click on this video up here and I'll go through some of the things that we do to make it easier. Well, I hope you found this interesting, and if you do want to support the channel, then please like, please subscribe. Also, if you do have any comments, or if there's anything that you agreed with or didn't agree with, or anything extra that you think you can do as parents to help supplement your own kids' education, then let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to reply. Thank you.